first guest is a legendary stand-up comedian and an Academy Award-winning actor. Hold on to your seats and welcome the one, the only, the hilarious Robin Williams.
And Thanksgiving, I had a traditional Thanksgiving in Atlantic City. What a wonderful place to go.
On August 11th, 2014, at approximately 11:55 a.m., Marin County Communications received a 911 telephone call reporting that a male adult had been located unconscious and not breathing inside his residence, has been identified as Robin McLaurin.
The hidden Robin Williams Billy Crystal saw. When Robin Williams died in August 2014, the world mourned the loss.
It was a really hard thing. He's my dearest friend, and it was only 2 weeks after.
Of a once-in-a-generation comedic force. His mind worked at a pace most people couldn't imagine, a rapid-fire engine of ideas, characters, jokes, and emotional intuition all firing at once. But what millions saw on the outside was only a fraction of who he really was. And nobody understood the full picture more clearly than his closest friend of over 3 decades, Billy Crystal. Now at 77, Crystal has begun speaking openly about the version of Robin the world never saw, not to expose him, but to make sure his legacy is complete instead of half-remembered. Crystal explains that the public believed they truly knew Robin because he gave so much of himself on stage. But that was only one layer, a brilliantly crafted, lightning-fast performance persona. The real Robin underneath was deeper, more sensitive, and far more fragile than people ever realized. For Crystal, the truth is emotional but important. What people saw on screen was only one dimension. I was lucky enough and sometimes heartbroken enough to know the rest. Their friendship began in the early 1,980 seconds, long before social media or constant publicity. They connected not because they were both famous comedians, but because they could actually meet each other at the same mental speed. Crystal famously said that Williams' brain worked like a Ferrari engine with no brakes, astonishingly quick, but impossible to stop, quiet, or slow down. Most people watching Robin saw only the Ferrari, the brilliance, the hyperspeed, the genius. Billy saw the missing brakes. He saw what it felt like when the engine wouldn't turn off. He saw the exhaustion behind the laughter. He saw the confusion that came after a manic burst of comedy ended. And he saw the cost of having a mind that worked so beautifully for the world, but painfully for the man living inside it. Crystal recalls private conversations that lasted for hours, not the Robin Williams show, not the voices, characters, or unstoppable improvisations, but the quiet, thoughtful Robin few ever knew. Robin would begin the call sounding playful and manic, but eventually that energy would fade. His voice would change, the speed would drop, and then the real conversations would begin. Robin's vulnerability emerged not through weakness, but through honesty. He talked about being unable to shut his mind off. He talked about the constant awareness, the overwhelming sensitivity, the emotional turbulence that came from feeling everything too intensely. Crystal believed that this sensitivity, the same sensitivity that made Williams a master of emotional comedy, also made him deeply vulnerable when he was alone. Billy understood because he lived inside the same world, the world of comedy, performance, expectation. But unlike Williams, Crystal had a quieter center, a slower pace, a groundedness that Robin admired and needed. Crystal provided something rare in Williams' life, a space where he didn't have to perform. The greatest gift you could give Robin was permission not to be Robin Williams. That was Billy's role in his life. Most people, Crystal explained, wanted the manic brilliance, the voices, the accents, the unstoppable jokes. If Robin wasn't performing, they felt disappointed. It was as if the world saw him as a fountain of energy instead of a human being. But with Billy, Robin could simply be still. He didn't have to be on. He didn't have to be a character. He didn't have to entertain. He had permission to be tired, confused, quiet, or emotional. Crystal learned that Robin's humor, while genuine, also acted as a shield. It protected him from exposing the deeper pain he carried. It distracted people from the parts of himself he didn't know how to talk about. His comedy wasn't just an art, it was a survival mechanism. Crystal once said something that captures the heart of who Robin truly was. He could make anyone feel better, except himself. That paradox defined Williams. He was the kindest, funniest man in the room and sometimes the saddest. Not because he wanted to be, but because the same mind that could create such joy for others often robbed him of peace. Billy understood this duality in a way few others could. Their bond came from recognizing each other's brilliance, but also each other's burden, the sensitivity, the overthinking, the demand to always be on, the fear of disappointing an audience, a friend, or even themselves. Crystal describes Robin as someone who felt life at maximum volume. Every emotion, every interaction, every piece of the world around him hit harder, deeper, and faster than it would for the average person. It made him extraordinary on screen and sometimes overwhelmed off screen. The truth Crystal reveals isn't meant to darken Robin's legacy. Instead, it expands it. It reminds the world that Robin Williams wasn't just a comedic machine, but a brilliant, fragile human being whose light was inseparable from the shadows he battled privately. Billy Crystal knew both versions, the unstoppable performer and the quiet, introspective friend, and he loved both. The mental synchronicity that defined their friendship. One of the most extraordinary aspects of Billy Crystal's relationship with Robin Williams was the rare mental connection they shared. Not every friendship can survive the collision of two extraordinary minds, but theirs not only survived, it thrived. Over more than 30 years, Crystal and Williams created a space where their rapid-fire wit, emotional intelligence, and shared understanding of human vulnerability could interact in ways that few outsiders could follow. Crystal has often described Robin's mind as operating at a speed that few could match. It wasn't merely the quickness of joke-telling or improv, it was the associative brilliance. The ability to leap from one idea to another, connecting observations in ways most people couldn't see, let alone follow. To witness Williams in full swing was to watch a force of nature, a mind moving faster than your eyes could track, yet making perfect sense as it created laughter, empathy, or sudden insight. Most people could only watch in awe. They could see the genius, the brilliance, the creativity, but they could not participate in it. Billy Crystal, however, was different. He could follow the lightning-fast associations, meet Robin at the same level, and even build on them. Their exchanges, whether on stage, at comic relief events, or in late-night television appearances, were performances of synchronicity, moments where two brilliant minds became something even greater together. Crystal recalled one of the key moments that defined their collaborative energy. It wasn't just quickness, though God knows he was quick. It was the connections he made, the leaps from one idea to another that no one else would see. Most people would just watch in amazement, but sometimes, if I was really on my game, I could not only follow where he was going, but meet him there. Those moments when we were completely in sync were some of the most exhilarating experiences I've ever had. This mental connection was not only visible to audiences during performances, it extended into their private lives. Their phone calls, late-night conversations, and quiet moments away from the public eye were often just as electrifying, though much more intimate. Crystal described these interactions as having the same rapid-fire energy, but with a layer of emotional depth that the public rarely saw. Ideas, jokes, and insights flowed freely, but they were intertwined with the kind of vulnerability that only decades of trust could allow. This synchronicity was both exhilarating and exhausting. Robin's mind never stopped. It worked constantly, processing the world in a way that created beauty and laughter for others, but also turmoil for himself. Crystal witnessed firsthand the double-edged nature of such brilliance. The very traits that made Robin the performer everyone admired also made him highly sensitive to pain, disappointment, and existential anxiety. Billy Crystal's unique understanding came from more than just admiration, it came from experience. As a fellow comedian navigating the pressures of fame, Crystal understood the demands of constant public attention, the challenge of performing while maintaining authenticity, and the strain of being seen as a source of laughter while managing internal struggles. But even Crystal acknowledged that Robin's mind operated on a level most could never comprehend, a blend of hyper-intelligence, extreme empathy, and the ceaseless need for mental movement. What made their relationship exceptional was the ability to engage with the full Robin Williams, not just the performer. Other colleagues might have been dazzled, exhausted, or intimidated by the sheer energy of Williams' mind. Crystal, however, could enter it, navigate it, and respond in ways that maintained equilibrium. This was rare, and it allowed their friendship to develop a depth and resilience few others could achieve. One mutual colleague described it succinctly: Billy was one of the few people who could actually keep up with Robin's mind. He wasn't just dazzled or exhausted by it. He could engage, converse, and even challenge him in a way that stimulated Robin rather than draining him. That's what made their bond extraordinary. This connection manifested not only in humor, but in emotional support. Crystal could perceive the shifts in Robin's energy, the moments when mania gave way to vulnerability, and when laughter served as both expression and shield. By recognizing these patterns, Crystal was able to provide a grounding presence that few others could. Their mental synchronicity became a conduit for empathy, understanding, and companionship. Crystal also noted that their ability to connect mentally and emotionally allowed Robin moments of rare relief from the performance expected of him. When he was with Billy, he didn't always have to be on. He could be contemplative, serious, or even silent, knowing that his friend would understand without judgment. It was an environment where performance was optional and humanity was primary. The bond forged through this synchronicity also had practical implications. During public performances, they could anticipate each other's timing, cues, and improvisational turns, creating moments that were magical precisely because they relied on an unspoken, mutual understanding. But beyond the applause, this connection gave both men a safe space, a mental and emotional playground where ideas could flourish, vulnerabilities could surface, and trust was absolute. Crystal has emphasized that this understanding was unique, not just because of Robin's genius, but because of their mutual recognition of the burdens brilliance carries. They both knew that minds capable of perceiving the world in extraordinary ways often also carry heavier emotional loads. Humor, creativity, and intelligence become both a gift and a challenge. By truly seeing each other's gifts and their costs, Crystal and Williams established a friendship that transcended typical Hollywood camaraderie. In essence, their mental synchronicity was the foundation of a profound friendship. It allowed Robin Williams to show more of himself than almost anyone else ever could. It allowed Billy Crystal to engage with the full complexity of a man who was, at once, dazzling, deeply empathetic, fragile, and human. It was this connection that provided both men with moments of exhilaration, comfort, and understanding, the kind that can only come when two extraordinary minds meet and recognize each other completely. This was the rare gift of their relationship, the ability to see, understand, and connect with both the brilliance and the burden of Robin Williams. The private rituals and vulnerability behind the laughter. Beyond the public performances, the award shows, and the charity events, Billy Crystal witnessed a side of Robin Williams that almost no one else ever saw. The moments of quiet reflection, shared rituals, and rare vulnerability that revealed the man behind the comedic genius. These private spaces were essential for Williams, who spent much of his life performing, entertaining, and meeting the relentless expectations of audiences, friends, and colleagues alike. One of the most intimate glimpses into this world came through their private dinners, a ritual shared with fellow comedian Whoopi Goldberg. After each comic relief telethon, the charitable event they co-founded that raised millions to fight homelessness, the three would retreat from the cameras, the applause, and the chaos. These dinners were simple, sacred, and fiercely protected. No press, no executives, no fans, just Robin, Billy, and Whoopi. It was a space where the roles of entertainer, host, and public figure were stripped away, and they could simply be human. Billy Crystal described these dinners as opportunities for Robin to decompress after the intensity of performing. The telethons required enormous emotional and physical energy. They involved live comedy, impromptu performances, and often direct interaction with homeless individuals. Williams carried the weight of those experiences home with him long after the cameras stopped rolling. The dinners became a container for processing that energy, a place where laughter and reflection could coexist without judgment. According to Crystal, these moments were more than social gatherings. They were windows into Williams's inner life. He might begin the evening joking, cracking one of his trademark absurd quips, or mimicking a voice. Then, without warning, he would pause, stare quietly at the table, and ask a deeply reflective question. "Do you think she's going to be okay?" he might ask, referencing someone they had encountered that day in their charitable work. That brief moment of stillness revealed the empathy, sensitivity, and inner concern that lay beneath his comedic exterior. Crystal emphasized that these pauses were not signs of sadness in the way the public might assume, but rather windows into Robin's natural reflectiveness moments when the constant need to perform lifted, allowing him to process emotions fully. These moments demonstrated the duality of his genius, the ability to produce boundless laughter while simultaneously carrying a profound sensitivity to human suffering. For Williams, humor and empathy were intertwined. He could make audiences laugh, yet he could absorb pain and sorrow in ways that few could understand. These dinners were also spaces of authenticity. Within this circle, Robin did not need to maintain his usual energetic persona. He could be thoughtful, serious, even philosophical. He could explore questions about life, happiness, meaning, and connection without worrying about how others would perceive him. Crystal recalled that these conversations often turned deeply personal, reflecting Robin's concern not only for others, but also for understanding his own experiences. The ritual extended beyond reflection into companionship and emotional support. Through these dinners, Crystal could recognize when Robin was struggling in ways that others might miss. He knew when a joke was not merely a joke, but a subtle signal of discomfort, exhaustion, or anxiety. The dinners allowed Crystal to maintain a baseline understanding of the real Robin, the man behind the public persona. This understanding would prove invaluable in later years as Williams faced increasing health challenges and emotional difficulties. It was during these private gatherings that Crystal saw firsthand Robin's extraordinary empathy. After visiting a homeless shelter during one comic relief tour, for example, Robin's mind lingered on the people they had met. That night at dinner, he would revisit the conversation, reflecting deeply on their struggles and expressing genuine concern. His ability to carry other people's pain alongside his own highlighted a core aspect of his humanity. He did not just perform kindness, he lived it. And yet, he often carried this weight alone, rarely allowing the public or even casual friends to see the full depth of his concern. Crystal also noted that these dinners allowed Robin to process the emotional impact of his work. Charity, performance, and life in Hollywood were all sources of joy and fulfillment for him, but also fatigue and stress. In the privacy of these gatherings, Robin could confront this complexity honestly. He could be simultaneously hilarious and serious, energetic and reflective, lighthearted and contemplative. These dualities existed comfortably only in spaces where he felt entirely safe. Another important aspect of these dinners was intellectual engagement. Williams' curiosity was immense. He was deeply knowledgeable about history, politics, philosophy, and human psychology. Yet, in public, much of this side of him was hidden because audiences primarily wanted laughter. During private dinners, he could explore these interests with friends who respected both his intellect and his sensitivity. Discussions could flow from backstage anecdotes to profound questions about life's purpose, happiness, and the nature of human suffering. Crystal recognized that these moments revealed the depth of Robin's empathy and intellect, facets that were largely invisible to the public eye. Through these rituals, Billy Crystal gained unparalleled insight into his friend's character. He saw Robin's kindness, thoughtfulness, and relentless concern for others. He also saw the struggle beneath the brilliance, the tension between the constant performance required by his public life and the private need for quiet reflection and emotional authenticity. These dinners were a rare opportunity for Robin to integrate these dual aspects of his life, if only temporarily. Crystal's reflections on these private rituals reveal the full spectrum of Williams's humanity. They show a man capable of breathtaking comedy and deep, sincere empathy. They reveal the moments of vulnerability that were rarely captured on stage or screen, the pauses, the questions, and the reflective silences that spoke volumes about the complexity of his mind and heart. In the end, these dinners weren't just about food or conversation. They were sacred spaces of trust, continuity, and emotional intimacy. They created a bond among the three comedians that allowed Robin to be fully himself. Brilliant, funny, sensitive, and human. Billy Crystal recognized the profound significance of these moments, understanding that this access to Robin's interior life was both rare and precious, a glimpse at the man behind the persona, the soul behind the comedy, and the vulnerability beneath the genius. The protective mask of comedy and the burden of brilliance. Billy Crystal's reflections on Robin Williams reveal that much of what the world saw as effortless humor was, in reality, a carefully maintained protective mask. Robin's comedy was dazzling, spontaneous, and profoundly empathetic. Yet it was also functional, a mechanism to navigate life, relationships, and his own restless mind. The brilliance everyone admired publicly was intertwined with an internal struggle few could comprehend, and even fewer could witness firsthand. Crystal has consistently emphasized that Robin's humor was authentic. but it served multiple purposes beyond simply entertaining an audience. It allowed him to express his observations of the human condition, to connect with others, and to process complex emotions safely. But it also allowed him to manage the intensity of his own mind, a mind that never truly rested. It channeled his perceptiveness, his empathy, and his insights in ways that were socially acceptable, digestible, and profoundly effective at creating joy. It wasn't fake, Crystal explained. The brilliance was absolutely genuine, but it was also functional. It kept people at a certain distance, focused on the performance rather than the performer. In other words, comedy was both gift and shield, a tool that allowed Williams to engage with the world without exposing the full vulnerability that accompanied his mental and emotional intensity. Crystal witnessed firsthand how this protective mechanism operated. Robin's rapid-fire improvisation, endless character work, and dazzling impersonations were all extensions of his incredibly sensitive mind. They masked the relentless self-awareness and emotional turbulence that accompanied living in a body and brain that never slowed down. The same energy that made him extraordinarily funny and inventive also made moments of quiet, reflection, and peace rare and precious. Billy observed that, for Robin, this protective aspect of comedy was necessary for survival. His mind was constantly making connections, seeing patterns and absurdities that most people missed. These insights could be isolating if expressed directly. Comedy, however, transformed potential chaos into connection, giving others the gift of laughter while providing him a measure of control over the intensity of his thoughts. It was a paradox. He could bring joy to millions while struggling internally to stabilize his own emotional equilibrium. Crystal's understanding of this paradox gave him a unique perspective on Robin's genius. He saw the double-edged nature of a mind that could generate infinite humor and empathy, but could also never rest. He understood that the very traits the public celebrated, lightning-fast wit, improvisational mastery, and emotional range, were also the source of Robin's personal challenge. Humor was not merely talent, it was an adaptive strategy, a means of negotiating the world while protecting himself from the overwhelming intensity of his perceptions and feelings. This realization deepened in the years leading up to Robin's final struggles. In 2014, Williams was initially diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, a diagnosis later corrected after his death to Lewy body dementia, a neurodegenerative condition affecting cognition, motor control, and emotional regulation. For someone whose identity was intimately tied to rapid mental associations, verbal agility, and creative spontaneity, the onset of this condition was profoundly destabilizing. Billy noticed subtle changes, pauses in conversations, slight hesitations in timing, and moments when Robin's characteristic improvisational energy required more effort than usual. Crystal recognized the deeper significance immediately. He was forgetting things, losing timing. He knew. I think that scared him more than anything, Crystal said. The mask that had protected Robin throughout his life, the comedy, the personas, the mental leaps was beginning to slip. For a man whose identity and connection to the world had been built on those abilities, this loss was existential, affecting not just his career, but the very way he interacted with life and people. Billy's ability to perceive these changes speaks to the depth of their friendship. Few could have noticed these subtle signs amid the larger-than-life persona Williams presented to the world. But Crystal had seen Robin in moments of quiet, reflection, and vulnerability for decades. He had internalized a baseline of what the real Robin was like, and when shifts occurred, he could recognize them immediately. This insight underscored the extraordinary nature of their bond. It was rooted not in admiration for the public genius, but in understanding the full, complex human being behind the genius. Even as Robin's neurological condition advanced, the interplay between his comedy and vulnerability persisted. The mask of humor continued to function as both a bridge to others and a shield for himself, yet the mask could no longer completely contain the complexity of his mind. Crystal observed the slow erosion of control that someone with Williams' extraordinary mental speed and sensitivity would feel with devastating clarity. It was as if the Ferrari engine that had always defined him was still revving, and to provide a space where they can exist authentically. Billy provided Robin with that space over 3 decades, understanding both the soaring brilliance and the profound fragility of the man behind the performance. Through humor, conversation, and shared rituals, he offered Robin a rare form of acceptance. the permission to simply be, without expectation or pressure. In reflecting on Robin's life, Crystal distills a truth that is both simple and profound. Robin wasn't just funny, he was fragile. He was brilliant but burdened. He made the world better because he couldn't make himself feel that way. These words capture the essence of a man who lived at the intersection of light and darkness, whose gifts were inseparable from his struggles, and whose humanity was at once extraordinary and deeply relatable. They remind us that the full measure of a person cannot be assessed by public achievements alone, but by the totality of their existence, brilliance, vulnerability, empathy, and all. In sharing these reflections, Crystal extends to the world the same gift he gave his friend: the opportunity to see the whole person, to recognize both the laughter and the pain, the creativity and the fragility. This legacy challenges us to approach our understanding of genius, mental health, and human complexity with empathy and nuance. Robin Williams' life, through the lens of Billy Crystal, becomes more than a story of talent and tragedy. It becomes a testament to friendship, compassion, and the profound ways human beings can illuminate the lives of others while quietly struggling themselves. Ultimately, the final point of this story is clear. The world lost a luminous, irreplaceable light in Robin Williams, but Billy Crystal allows us to appreciate the depth and complexity of that light. By understanding the man beyond the laughter, the mind that never rested, the heart that carried others' pain, and the vulnerability behind the brilliance, we honor not only his extraordinary talent, but his complete humanity. Through Crystal's eyes, we see Robin Williams as he truly was, a man whose joy, empathy, and genius touched millions, even as he fought battles that few could ever understand.